Welcome everyone to our January webinar. My name is Krysten Lobisch, and our webinar today will be Navigating Rapport Building and the Therapeutic Relationship with Culturally Diverse Clients and Their Families. And we'd like to welcome back Alejandro Leguizamo for our presenter today. Before turning this over to Alejandro, I wanted to take a minute to tell you about NERI Press. Our mission is to share research and best practices emerging in our field. For a long time, we accomplished this only through book sales. But in the last several years, we've been compelled to continue our mission by expanding how we disseminate knowledge in new ways. It's important to us here at NERI Press and Training Center to hear from you what kinds of information, training, resources, and books you want and need. So please contact us with any feedback, positive or negative. You can email me. My email is coming up later on. Just out of curiosity, how many people have participated in a NERI Press webinar before? Jonathan, if you could launch our poll. So most of you have been here before, so welcome back and welcome to our new folks. So I'll talk about this at the end of the webinar, but I just want to make the pitch that if you find our webinars helpful, please consider becoming a sponsor. Like NPR, it's your sponsorship that makes our series happen and allows us to offer our webinars for free to thousands of people across the globe. If you register to be a sponsor, then we will offer you a free gift of 2 of NERI Press's books and mention you in all our publicity about the webinar series and at each webinar. So I'll talk more later about that. Before we get started with Alejandro's presentation, there are a few more things I'd like to share. With all workshops, I'd like to let you know the learning objectives, which are here. Participants should be able to identify the different therapist characteristics that maximize the development and maintenance of a strong therapeutic alliance, identify specific benefits of a strong therapeutic alliance, and consider how to identify their own cultural biases, become more mindful of microaggressions, and what to do in case of ruptures in the therapeutic relationship. Second, I want to let you know that the YouTube recording from this webinar will be posted on the NERI Press website within a week. Slides are currently ready to download right now from your control panel on the right-hand side and also at neripress.org/webinars. When the workshop is over, please answer the short survey at the end. We would love your feedback. And finally, in about a week, you will receive a follow-up email from me with a link to the recordings and to a certificate of attendance that you can download. And now I will introduce our speaker. Dr. Leguizamo is a psychologist currently in the faculty at Roger Williams University. He was previously the clinical director of the Sex Offender Treatment Program at the Massachusetts Treatment Center. For the past 2 decades, he has been researching, training, and evaluating adult and juvenile sex offenders, and he has also presented research and conducted training workshops in regional and national conferences. Welcome, Alejandro.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. I am talking to you from sunny Providence, Rhode Island, and where it's very, very cold. So I am hopeful that you are in a much warmer place. So let's get started. Krysten had talked about the learning objectives, so I am going to jump right into things so that we have enough time for questions. So let's begin with some definitions about in regards to rapport, the therapeutic relationship, and the group treatment parallel to the therapeutic relationship, which is group cohesion. So rapport is the beginning, the first connection that we have with a client. That is going to hopefully help us develop an atmosphere of trust and comfort, where the person is going to be able to talk to us without feeling judged or criticized, and leads the person to feeling valued by us. Now, that can be very easy with some clients. You may be thinking that, we all develop rapport with our clients very easily. And what is new about this? Well, what I would say is that there are always clients that throw us curveballs. And regardless of our experience, we may have a bit of a harder time connecting with them. They may be individuals with very different life experiences, different ethnicities, different sexual orientations. And we have to be mindful and aware of why we may have difficulties developing rapport as quickly with those clients. That beginning contact can be very valuable for treatment or pretty detrimental depending on how that, in a sense, that first contact takes place. Now, if we're able to develop rapport with the client, develop that initial relationship, then that will develop into the therapeutic relationship. And that is the basis for any progress in treatment, that therapeutic relationship. Now, in this age of evidence-based treatments, manualized treatment, I have proven that my manual works with everybody. We have to keep in mind that the relationship that we have with the clients, the relationships that we have with the families, is really the conduit for that change. The manuals, the techniques, those are tools that we use in order to help the client along. But the base of all of that is the therapeutic relationship. And in the case of group cohesion, that is the relationship among the group members and between each member and the therapist and the members with one another. Group cohesion is also, the group needs to be cohesive enough in order for the group to make progress, for individuals in group to be able to make progress in their treatment. But attaining and maintaining the group cohesion is almost like trying to balance a handful of sheets on a table. It's possible. You can even do it. Not during this webinar. You're going to get distracted because it can be hard. But if you grab a bunch of papers and you try to balance them, with enough time, you're able to get there, and that's group cohesion. It also means that if you let go of those papers, they're going to fall. If you breathe too heavily on them, they're going to fall. And it's the same thing with group cohesion. It takes work to get there, and it is very easily lost. Either somebody disrupts confidentiality, violates confidentiality, they talk outside of a group, there's an argument or something else happens in the group, or a new member comes in, and group cohesion is going to be depleted and it needs to be built back up. And we'll talk a little bit about how to go about doing that as well if there are ruptures. Now I'm going backwards here. Okay, hang on 1 second, sorry about that. All right, there we go. All right, so how do we build rapport upon meeting our clients, upon meeting our family, the families of our clients in case of juveniles? We should be warm, empathic, sensitive, respectful, and responsive. Now, there's some evidence about mirroring the client, and this is a bit tricky. It's kind of like mirroring what the client is doing, but in a non-escalating manner. So if a client is quiet, we don't want to be overly verbal and overly loud because that is going to turn off our client. And I have in mind a case where it's unfortunately a case where I failed completely. A number of years back, I was doing treatment. I was called to do treatment with a Southeast Asian young man. And he was very quiet. He did not want to be in treatment. He was heavily gang involved, but he was sort of like superficially compliant. And when I first met with him, he didn't make much eye contact. He didn't talk much. So what I should be doing would be to very calmly and even with a low voice, try to engage him and try to process with him what the situation was like for him. Instead, I try to engage him in his art because it was all the documentation said that he was a very good artist, and in fact he was. But I tried to engage him in that regard, and I tried to gauge him to get him to do some drawing, and he basically just dismissed me right off the bat after that. And so there wasn't much eye contact thereafter, and I could have said that, well, you know, he's Southeast Asian, it's a cultural thing. But no, it was because he couldn't stand me because I messed up in the beginning. So this is important. So a non-escalating mirror. If the client is angry, obviously we're not going to get angry with them because that would take us nowhere. We should provide information about what is going to happen. Sometimes it's reassuring of what the expectations are. For example, I have a client that I evaluated was very hesitant to talk to his clinician in the beginning, and his clinician was wonderful and was very sensitive to this. And so he told the young, well, he was a teenager at the time. Well, you know, you don't have to talk about the worst things, you know, right off the bat. You know, choose other things that we can talk about that you're comfortable talking about. And that was very reassuring for the young man. In another case that I saw recently, the young man, he was an immigrant from Central America who committed a sex offense, and he was very ashamed of that. He asked me about, I told him that in treatment, the expectation would be that we would be talking about his offense and what may have led to it so that he could avoid it in the future. And he asked me right off the bat, what about if I'm not comfortable talking about it? And I told him, you know, we'll talk about other things then. There's never a conversation lost. We could talk about other criminogenic needs and other issues in his life that, in my mind, contributed to the offense. And he said, what about if I never become comfortable? And I said, well, you know, then we won't talk about it, and we'll talk about other stuff. And he agreed to engage in treatment, and he identified other things that he was comfortable talking about. But in a few months, it took about 10 months actually, he became comfortable enough so that he began to talk about his offense. You can also elicit questions, bring up cultural issues right off the bat. This is very, very important, and not all of us do it. Talk about how you're going to work together, what concerns they have based on who you are culturally. What do they have any concerns talking to you if you are a woman or if you are a man? If depending on your ethnicity as well, or your socioeconomic status, you're not going to say obviously, well, you know, given that I may make more than you, you know, are you comfortable with that? But rather talk about life experiences. For example, I treated a young man from Puerto Rico who was gang involved and who was very good at fighting, even though he was fairly short, but he was solid. And, you know, I spoke to him in Spanish. He replied in Spanish, and sometimes we use English and Spanish. But early on, I said, you know, you feel comfortable with me? You know, I am from a different country. We can speak Spanish if you want, but I have different life experiences from you, and you need to help me understand what life is like for you in order for us to work together in order to help you out. You know, he was very good at fighting. I have been involved with 2 fights in my life when I was in 2nd grade. I have a 50-50 success rate. But even though we come from the same cultural group and have similarities in language, we obviously have very different life experiences. So not just because you belong to the same ethnic group or the same cultural group from the client, does that mean that you're going to have similar life experiences? and we need to take that time to connect with them. With parents, particularly with parents from minority ethnic groups, you're going to have to keep in mind that there are going to be issues of trust right off the bat. You represent the establishment, the system. They may or may not be, they may or may not have positive feelings about their child being involved in the system. There's variation. I have encountered families where the parents are like, "Oh, thank God my child was committed, so that now he can get help." Or if you are treating adults, the person may be mandated to be in treatment, so they're not going to be particularly happy about being there. Now, with families, elicit what expectations they may have. They are, for the most part, the experts on their kid, and how and offer to help together with them so that their child can be successful, which is really what any parent wants, deep down even. Now, if you're using translators with families that don't speak English well or have issues of language, keep in mind that it is okay to do so. It is best if the translators are well trained. A well-trained translator is not going to engage with the client. The client and you are going to be looking at one another, and the translator is going to be talking kind of like on the side. However, we are not all lucky to have those types of translators, so you have to do the best that you can with what you have. There is research that suggests that there is no impact in rapport with the use of translators. However, you don't get as much information, given that there's more time spent on just the translating back and forth. But also, it is more difficult then to gauge if the client is not being forthcoming, because you're going through a set of translating, and it becomes more difficult to discern that, at least in the beginning. Now, keep in mind that the therapeutic relationship will take time with diverse individuals, both ethnically and sexual minorities too. If they have mistrust of your cultural group or of the system, it's going to take time. And particularly for ethnic minorities, and especially if the child or the adult or the family are immigrants, there is this expectation that business is going to take place it is not going to take place until the relationship has been established, especially if you're talking about sensitive matters like sexuality and a sexual offense. So take the time. No conversation is a waste. Small talk is very, very important. 15 minutes or so prior to a meeting, how are things? How's the family? How's work is very, very important in order to develop that trust and that connection with the families. Now, Rogers did have a right in regards to the elements that he saw as being essential for well, actually, he thought they were sufficient for treatment: unconditional positive regard, empathy, and genuineness or congruence. Now, there's research to show that these factors are essential for the therapeutic relationship, but they're not sufficient for treatment. So again, the base of treatment is going to be that relationship, and then other tools can be used in order for treatment to be sufficient. And these factors refresh from other things that you may have heard. Positive regard is the affirmation of the person's inherent worth, is giving the person unconditional positive view of them, not necessarily of their behavior, but this regard is communicated through respect and care. And this idea that their behavior is going to be respected. So if they do something that merits negative consequences, we will respect that as well. but it is important to be respectful of them, and to treat them to respect their humanity in a sense. And this is probably a little bit sometimes more difficult to do with adolescents because of how endearing they can be at times. But also as they are trying to assert their independence, to kind of like foster that and give them that respect as well. We don't tend to apologize necessarily to adolescents, where they kind of call us on mistakes that we do or in things that we do that are not fair. And really that apologizing and communicating that respect really does go a long way. But the idea here is to make the person truly sense that their inherent worth is being affirmed as a person. And especially if they have committed a sexual offense and they're being seen by the system, by society, and by many of us actually as kind of like being less than. This is one of the times that I have an issue with the word deviance, because it really puts the person in kind of like the position of a monster that is deviant, as opposed to talking about problematic sexual behavior or pathological sexual behavior, which I think is a little bit less damning in a sense. We also need to be empathic and really try to understand our clients' experiences and communicating this understanding. And we're clinicians, we tend to be empathic, but sometimes it's going to be difficult to truly understand the other person's experience. And we need to be open to the fact that we may not truly get it. I am not really going to get what it's like to be a gang member. I am truly not going to get what it's like to be an exclusive pedophile. So if I'm able to be aware of that, then it would open me to ask questions about what it's like for them. With the exclusive pedophile, for example, I mean, there's the need to empathize with the fact that they cannot express that because it's detrimental to other people. It's against the law, and it carries negative consequences for the other people and for them as well. So how can the person go on as a sexual being becomes very difficult to figure out. So we can empathize with that. And also we need to be genuine, honest in our communication. I had a client that had a number of difficulties. He had committed a sex offense. He had a touch of Asperger's / autism. He had a touch of personality pathology. He would like fire me every time I went on vacation. And I told him very early on, look, I am going to tell you the truth in as much as possible all the time, even if you don't like hearing it, so that you know that what you're getting from me is accurate. And I worked very hard in order to do that with him, and he wasn't happy with me a number of times, but then made everything else that I said more important, because he knew that I was being honest. But also, it's important to have some disclosure, particularly in regards to the process in treatment, how they're feeling about the connection. If the person is not giving you really any meat in treatment, those sessions are going to be boring. It's okay to say that, I'm kind of bored here. How about you? Maybe we can talk about something that is more of consequence. The same thing in group treatment. There are times that the members may have these agreements not to like give feedback to one another, so that nobody gets their feathers ruffled. But you're gonna sense that those sessions are really not working out, and it's very important to comment on that. And even some self-disclosure, but this is tricky, because you don't want to say, well, when I'm very angry and I feel like, throwing things, you don't want to say that. But, obviously you can say that in displacement, when people feel angry, or in my experience, where people have done whatever. But that authenticity, and you also using your personality, if you have a good sense of humor, use it. If you prefer to be serious, don't try to make jokes, because that's not going to work. Use your personality as well, and don't try to be somebody else. This is particularly more applicable to people early in the field when they're still trying to figure out things, because we want to have a sense that we know things and that we are the experts there. And it takes some time to be able to tell the clients, I have no idea, but let me figure it out, and let me talk to other people in order to figure out how to help you. And that's really going to give us some credit with our clients. Now, therapist characteristics that we know work with sex offenders, and this works with anybody in treatment, really, is the idea of being empathic and warm and rewarding and directive and reflective to clients. This is, we are going to give them some direction, but I also think that we need to give them some room in order to explore things at times, and obviously with our direction. We should be supportive. These are things that actually Saran and Marshall found in Britain, where all of their treatment in their prisons is the videotaped. So they had tapes upon tapes upon tapes, so they were able to code therapist behavior and then connect that to outcomes. And supportive therapists, encouraging therapists were more engaging. These therapists emphasized emotional expression and validated it. That's very important. And as my wife points out, it is very difficult to validate things, especially when she's going through something and I'm like trying to fix it instead of validating things. But really validate that emotional expression is important, even if we're not comfortable with it. Use appropriate self-disclosure, especially around process, and use a positive and motivational approach. And what they found was that the clients of therapists that have these characteristics tended to face less denial from their clients, and the clients were more engaged in treatment. And of course, this makes perfect sense because the therapist was warm, supportive, not confrontational, encouraged emotion. Really, the therapist created an environment in which the person could take risks, particularly in regards to denial. So, and that impacted the relationship as well. So people were more comfortable and therefore more willing to talk. Now, what impacts this therapeutic relationship and group cohesion? Well, we need to be aware and really fess up to the fact that we all have biases. There are neurological, yes, evidence for our biases, how we categorize things and people, really. And just think about early on, we had to categorize, animals that were fairly big and had big teeth. We had to categorize them as dangerous. So we encounter a new one, we wouldn't have to say, well, there's this thing with big teeth and a mane coming at me, it seems okay, and then we die. So we like to categorize things, and that makes things easier, and that's called heuristics. However, that means that we can miss the details of the people that we have in front of us if we begin to categorize. We also have implicit biases, what we think of as things that are automatic. What I tell my students is generally close your eyes and picture a drug dealer in as much detail as you can. So think of a drug dealer and as much detail. And many people, according to research, would picture a young male either African American or Latino individual. And then I ask my students, well, now picture in your mind who gets you your drugs. And they start giggling because that person looks just like them. But this implicit bias walks in automatically, okay? So these biases, what we get from the media, through our biology, our neuro, our brain basically, all impacts how we see others, and it leads us to run the risk of committing microaggression, and these are unintended, unconscious comments that we make that offend the other person. They can be very, very small, but they have been deemed as kind of like death by 1,000 cuts. That the person doesn't really intend for them to be offensive, but they come across as that. And we all do them. I have received them and I have committed them, and we need to be mindful of that. So we got to think about our biases, what preconceptions we may have about the people that we are treating and about the cultural groups to which they belong, and let's try to learn from them what their functioning is like, what their lives are like within the cultures that they belong to. And these microaggressions can lead to ruptures in the therapeutic relationship and group cohesion. And they have a negative impact, and about 50% of the time, we don't tend to address them in treatment. And it's very, very important, if you notice that you did something, to bring it up with the group and process it, or try to create an environment where your client is going to feel safe enough to confront you in that. And if you're talking about culture right off the bat, that might give them the comfort in order to be able to do that. Be aware of cultural countertransference. Just like regular countertransference, we have these unconscious biases and feelings towards other cultures, not only from our upbringing, but even from our training as mental health professionals. That training is based on middle-class European values, and our clients may not they may not apply to our clients. Treating cultural issues as cognitive distortions, we need to be mindful of that. If they are experiencing discrimination, we need to be dealing with them as such and not as kind of like part of some sort of distorted thinking. And in order to repair these ruptures, we have to work on having a non-defensive stance, validate the client's experience, accept responsibility and apologize, and obviously not repeat the behavior in as much as we can avoid it, in order for that relationship to be repaired. And that can happen. If we are able to accept responsibility, that is going to help the person regain trust in us, and also that's going to model it for them. Okay, how to repair relationships, and also how to admit responsibility. Okay. All right. So in conclusions, I cannot. I'm sorry, this feels like very rushed. It's a short webinar, but remember, for when next week when I phone you and ask you about what you learned in this webinar, you will tell me that the main thing is the relationship. The relationship is the most important thing. And we need to be empathic and open to the experience of our clients right off the bat, and talk about our cultures and how we're going to work on this connection in order to embark in what is very difficult treatment together. And that we are going to be positive with our clients. We're going to be empathic and try to understand. We're going to be true to ourselves. And if we screw up, we are going to admit it, take responsibility, and apologize, and get on with things with our clients. Okay, I hope that this has been informative to you, and I look forward to your questions. Unless they're very difficult, in which case I will just punt them away to something else. I'm just kidding. I will try to answer everything. Thank you very much. And there's my contact information. I check email all the time, so feel free to email me if you have any questions.
All right. Hello, everybody. So we're going to be doing a little bit of a Q&A. I hope you excuse my lighting. It's a little dark. So I have some great questions for you, Alejandro, from people. So I hope you're ready.
As ready as I'm going to be.
All right. So firstly, I just wanted to start with a simple one. Can you give an example of a microaggression?
Yes. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go from personal experience, and I'll do both. One microaggression that I received when I graduated from college. I got a job at a hospital in the psychiatric unit, and one of the nurses there told me jokingly, "Well, you only got this job because you speak Spanish." And I'm sure that had something to do with it, but I had a degree from a university, and I had been working with children for 4 years while I was in college. So her statement kind of like invalidated my experience. And it wasn't that she didn't like me. When she had a baby and the baby was like a week old, we went to visit her at home, and she gave me her baby to hold. So obviously she liked me, and she didn't think I was going to kill the baby or anything. But this was something that was unintentional. On my end, actually in the same hospital, I admire people that can do accents or can mimic other people or do impressions. And the only thing that I can do is an Indian accent. Don't ask me how, but that's the only thing I can do. And there was a trainee from Pakistan working with us, a psychiatrist. And one time I was with other people there, and I started doing the accent because I was so excited I could do it. And of course, as you may have guessed, he was right behind me, and the look on his face still haunts me. And I didn't intend for it to be offensive, but obviously it was. So those are a couple of examples of microaggressions.
Great examples. Thank you. I have a great question that says, how would you recommend navigating families, particularly families of color, in talking openly about sexual offenses and healthy sexuality in general?
Oh, that's a big one. That's a big one. That's kind of like the holy grail. I think talking to them about, informing them that there is going to have to be talk about sex and sex offenses, given the nature of the treatment that we are engaged in. Talk to them about their comfort level. What do they, how do they learn, how comfortable they are talking about sex, how comfortable they will be, how do they see themselves becoming more comfortable. Now, it is tricky because we tend to want our clients to talk to their families about their offense, which is really, really uncomfortable. And also we need to think about what may be normative. Would we want to know about our children's sexual lives? Probably not. So it's a very tricky thing. I think that I would go separately to talk about how they envision their children developing sexually in a way that it is congruent with their values as a family, and kind of like talk about how that is going to merge with healthy sexuality. You may find families that may be kind of like evangelical families where there's no sex until marriage, and talking to them about, okay, so what does that look like for your child, and how can we merge that with this idea of consensual sex, and what happens if the child is going to engage in things beforehand. But we need to keep in mind that we cannot impose our values on their families, but try to work within what their values are in a way for the client to develop healthy sexuality within that framework.
Thank you so much. I have so many great questions. I'm like, I don't know where to go. I'm trying to spread them out between people who have asked more than one, but what is your biggest piece of advice for therapists who are new to sex offender treatment?
Don't freak out. You are going to dream about your work. It's okay. I have dreamt of things. When I started working at the treatment center, it was my second time working at a prison, but one particular guy really freaked the hell out of me. He, for a number of reasons, but of course, one of those nights I ended up dreaming about him. That's okay. Don't freak out. Okay. Talk to people around you. Get as much supervision as you can, and keep in mind that the work is going to affect you. Don't say anybody that tells me, "Oh, I leave my work at work." That doesn't happen. I don't care if you're a banker, if you're a mechanic, or you're a therapist. It is going to affect you, and it is best to be mindful of how it's affecting you, so that then you can address it. Okay. Also, sex offenders are just like anybody else. The only difference is that they're in treatment and they got caught. I work in a university, and it's kind of like a little morbid, but I know that there's plenty of people in my university that have engaged in sexual aggression, but they haven't been caught or accused of it. That's talk about a positive outlook on people, huh? But these offenders are very similar to us. They may have experiences that are different, but they are doing the best they can with what they've got, basically. So we need to help them along that way. But they're not these kind of like monsters that are so different from us. They're really not.
Thank you. I think that's excellent advice. I am not a therapist in training, but I think that sounds like excellent advice.
Thanks.
I have a question that says, as a woman, using self-disclosure, especially in group, is really challenging and hard to navigate. How can female therapists use self-disclosure with particularly pathological male clients?
In displacement, I know somebody, or people tend to do this, or people feel this way, or people have said that. You can say anything in displacement. That is a wonderful, wonderful tool. So you can say, or women tend to do this, or women tend to feel this way, so that you are not sharing personal information about you, but you're talking in generalities in displacement. So you can share anything in that particular way, and it may apply to you, it may not, but there's no way for them to know.
Great. One that I think might apply to a lot of our listeners right now, actually, which also speaks a little bit about an experience as being a white female counselor. It says, as a white female counselor, how can I validate clients' experience navigating systems of oppression without appearing to over-identify? And it has a follow-up. What about the fact that I myself and the treatment I provide may also represent a system of oppression?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. All right, so let's try to unpack that. I think that being very very upfront with the clients about not truly being able to get their experience. That you have different life experiences based on a number of factors, and to talk to them about how they have been affected by these systems, and to validate their experience, and try to then work with them in exploring ways in which they can manage these systems. There are times that they may be able to do things about it, and there are times that they may not be able to do things about it. Just like any of us, we all, to different degrees, but we all work in systems and existing systems that sometimes we're going to be able to address some things, and sometimes we're not. So you can validate the person's experience without, and help them come up with ways to manage it and to cope with it without getting over involved. I think that the first question is how. I got the impression that how to do this without getting over involved with the client. If you find yourself kind of like picketing or wanting to picket, that may be a little bit over involvement. But talking to them about what they can do and empowering them, and sort of like letting them, helping them differentiate when they can do something about it, and when they are going to have to be able to, they're going to have to sit with it and find ways to cope with it in an indirect way. That may be more valuable. And the second part of the question, if you can remind me of it, Krysten.
Sure, let me go back here. What about the fact that I myself and the treatment I provide may also represent a system of oppression?
I think it depends on how it's done. I think that sex offender treatment, more than any other type of treatment, probably with the exceptions of substance abuse treatment, can be a very oppressive situation, because number one, because the person may not want treatment. Number two, nobody's going to be advocating for them. I mean, there's people advocating for people in substance abuse treatment, but we don't see in the news people advocating for sex offenders. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, I have encountered many therapists that have been oppressive because they could be. And that behavior would not be tolerated in any really other type of treatment. But because of the nature of our work, it's sort of like it goes unchecked. So I think that if we have the goal, number one, really realize that the person in front of us is our client. I mean, I have heard many times society is my client. Well, yes, society is not in front of you. The person is there. How to engage them respectfully, how to help them navigate things that are very, very difficult to talk about. So just think about, like, anybody like talking to you about, like, your masturbatory practices. I mean, we tend to do this with our clients. Imagine somebody asking you that question. So navigating them through this very uncomfortable situation with the goal that we want them to be able to have a good life. This is why I really like the Good Lives model. Just shout out to all those who do the Good Life model. We want, and I have had people that I have worked with respond very well to that. We're going through all of this stuff that is painful in order to try to get you to be in a space where you're more at peace and you're able to have a good life. That's our goal. And I think that then treatment ceases to be oppressive if that's the goal. If our goal is to shame them, that is going to be oppressive. If our goal is for them to be able to have a better life, then it ceases to be oppressive, at least in my view.
That's wonderful. And I think that's an excellent place to wrap up, actually. We have a couple little end bits that we're going to do. But if other people have questions for you, is it okay that they contact you about them?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. That's great. Thank you so much, Alejandro.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay. So that was wonderful. I should say that I always really enjoy working with Alejandro. I think he has so many important things to say, and it's always a really great experience for me. So I just invite you here to take a look at the rest of the lineup that we have for the webinars coming up in the next couple of months. You can view it here, and if you go to nearypress.org/webinars, you can also see it on our website. Paid CE credits are going to be available for psychologists and social workers for all of our webinars. For details about how to obtain CEs, you can visit our webinars page at nearypress.org/webinars, or you can contact me. That's actually my email on the bottom of the screen. And if you have any questions about this webinar, please feel free to field them my way. I'd also like to let you know that we publish a free monthly newsletter and we discuss a new or controversial journal article or research paper. You are automatically signed up for this resource, and we hope that you will find it to be helpful. As I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, please consider becoming a sponsor for the remainder of our webinar series. We're really excited to offer these webinars. And to our past sponsors last year and the year before, some of whom are renewing, thank you so much for your commitment to our webinar series. When you sign up to be a sponsor, as I mentioned, we'll send you 2 of Neary Press's popular books, or 2 new books if you have those books. If you become a sponsor now, you get guaranteed seats to all remaining webinars, and if you sign up as an organization, you get 15 seats. We will also do your monthly registration for you every month. We will publicize your name or organization on our website and also in our webinar slides. So sponsorship is $98 for individuals, $250 for organizations, and you can visit nearypress.org/sponsorship form to sign up or contact info@nearypress. Thank you again to our brand new sponsors for this year. You can see them on the screen. They're organizations, agencies, and individuals, and we would not be able to have you here without them and their support. If you liked this webinar, I hope you visit our webinar site and our new YouTube channel to see other webinars that we've offered in the past. Alejandro actually did one last year for us that was wonderful on a similar topic, so I encourage you to look that up. It's possible to pay for CE credits for all past recorded Neary Press webinars. Thank you to Alejandro for such a great webinar, and thank all of you for attending. I'd really like to say again how much I welcome your feedback. I do read the survey that you do at the end of each webinar, and I do take your suggestions into account every time. So please complete your evaluation form when you close out the webinar, and we'd like to wish you a great day and a great rest of the week. Thank you so much for being here today.